Welcome to Off the Rickshaw, the podcast where three South Asian millennials slow down, speak up, and completely sound off. From unspoken family rules to unprocessed emotions. This is where heritage meets hard truths and hot takes. Where the kids who are told to be tough, to keep it in, to just pray through it. Where emotions were too loud and too messy, or just not safe to name. Now we're trying to change that. Today's episode kicks off our multi-part series on mental health. While our generation is finally starting to talk about it, there's still a long way to go. We're unpacking the silence, the shame, the survival mode many of us were raised in, and asking, what does healing actually look like when no one ever actually showed it to us? So if you've ever felt burnt out but kept smiling, felt everything and yet nothing at once, or been told that therapy is for other people, this one's for you. Take a breath, take a seat. This is Off the Rickshaw. Let's ride.
Do it.
Episode 5. We are in a new location. If you were someone who's followed us through the intro episode to now, you have probably seen, I want to say, 4 different backgrounds. And we're hoping that this background is going to be the one for us moving forward. We've got a nice mic set up here. We've got a really nice camera. We've got some soundproofing walls. This is all an attempt to make sure that the experience of listening to this podcast is easier. It's better. The quality is better. And so that's how it is. I mean, let's get right into it, boys. Today's topic is mental health. It is something that has a lot of stigma behind it. Yeah. There's a lot of demystifying, debunking in this kind of topic. I want to start off, with the foundations. Growing up, what was mental health like in your household? And to be honest, it didn't even exist as a concept.
Yeah. So for me, it didn't exist at all. Like mental health, even today, when I discuss it with people in my house, it's not a thing that goes over very well. I think in my house, it's almost non-existent. To my family, it's the thing with mental health. A thing that's very difficult for people to understand is that since it's hard to see, it's hard to believe it. And so when I bring up mental health with my family, it's almost like just kind of deal with it.
Yeah.
It's not really a thing. So growing up, really didn't hear the words mental health. I didn't even know about it myself until I was a teenager. Maybe I passed that. I was probably in my early 20s.
Is it something that you guys are talking about by the time you're in high school?
No, not even.
How about university?
University maybe starting to a little bit. Like I said, early 20s is when I really started to hear the words mental health, not just in my household, but in the world in general. I feel like with things like Bell Let's Talk and, I think the movements came about. That's when I really started hearing it in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Actually, we never even talked about it.
Yeah.
So where Samir might have talked about, we never talked about it in my house. It was not something, it was like one of those taboo subjects that you just kind of avoided. I didn't talk about it. My sister didn't really talk about it. So it was one of those things. My parents never really talked about it. So it was one of those things where we just kind of avoided the subject altogether. I think that's done actually a little bit more harm than good because we avoided it. And we all had our own kind of issues, like every family does. But we completely avoided it. What about you?
It's interesting. So I think there was a ununderstood correlation between struggle and mental health. So if it's struggle, it's something that you're going through.
Yeah.
It hasn't been defined as mental health yet, but you're experiencing something and you're trying to overcome it, and it's manifesting physically. So, if my dad came home after work and just didn't want to talk to anyone, yes, he was tired, but there were things that were going through his head that he couldn't actually articulate. But we knew that he was struggling with something, right? So it's like there's certain symptoms or signs that you're seeing, but the term mental health has not been associated with it. There was also this kind of long-term, now I'm able to actually articulate it better, but I feel like generationally it's been understood in a different way. So for example, sometimes when I talk about it with my family now, their generation or the way that they grew up or the way that they went through different stages of life consisted of a lot of physical labor.
Yeah.
And that manifested to them talking about physical health a lot more. Versus if you talk about today's generation, there's a lot more mental pressure than there is physical strain. And it depends on the industry that you're in. But we see more white collar jobs, right? Which are desk jobs.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of mental pressure that is coming on by sitting at one place and trying to do something and simultaneously thinking about 10 other things at once. Versus if you're someone who is in our generation but is doing a blue collar job, you're not only doing the physical strain, but there's a mental component that's even affecting you even more. And we can kind of break that down a little more, but I think there was a deeper focus on the physical side because there were more blue collar jobs during that generation relative to now. And that is why, although it manifested, no one really correlated those two words together, like mental health and struggle.
So did you talk about it with your parents or?
No, we never talked about it. We knew that there was something like that something was there. So for example, as I mentioned in the intro, like if you're going through a struggle and you feel heavy, pray it out. Just like go to your mosque.
That was like the
go to your mosque. Sit in a corner. And take out beats and just in repertoire. Say a couple of words and just feel at peace. And then of course there's a faith spiritual component to this where it was rely on that more.
Sure.
Right. Which at a young age you don't tend to understand, but because your parents said so, you do it. Right. Which we might criticize now, but I'm actually happy that they did that and that I went to the mosque to do that at that time. But yeah, it wasn't really to get your answer. We didn't really talk about it at all.
Because I know you mentioned that you talked about it a little bit with your parents, but do you, like looking back, do you think that you wanted to talk about it more?
Yeah, I still do. And yeah, I think everyone copes in different ways. And like Mubin, my parents definitely do it through religion. I think there's many different ways of coping with mental health, and I don't know if there's a one right way of doing it.
Sure.
It's whatever works.
Right.
But I think there needs to be an acknowledgement and a discussion around
Sure.
mental health. It is a real thing.
Of course.
However you cope, that's on you.
Sure.
Whatever works for you, but let's talk about it.
How do you so now that we've talked about whether in the past we've been exposed to it within our environments that we've been in, how do you define it now? Like if you were to think about this after everything that you may have gone through and the exposure that you have gotten, how do you define mental health in your own terms now?
I think it's something for me, because I think everyone will have their own kind of
course
definition for it. But for me, it's something that kind of throws me off my game. Like I know when I'm like chill and I know when I'm my normal self. And for me, it's like when I'm kind of thrown off and I'm not feeling like myself. So I think that's for me would be the best way to define it. I know it's a tricky thing to really kind of fully define, but for me, it's something that where I can tell that I'm not feeling like my normal self, and I'm low energy, always angry, stressed. I just want to not talk to anybody because I kind of am the type to kind of just I'm very introverted, so I like to just kind of stay to myself, and like that's like my natural state, but I'll do it even more if I'm feeling a certain type of way. So I think that's kind of like a tell for me when I'm, feeling a little bit off. But again, like it's different for everybody.
Yeah. How would you, after going through everything, how do you define that now?
Yeah, I think it's very hard to define, and I think that's one of the challenges of the discussions about mental health. So it's really hard for me to define it, but I would want to classify. I feel like there are two different types of mental health. There's one that's kind of short-term based. That's your burnout, your stress. And then there's some more long-term, like depression, anxiety. So I want to classify there's like different types within the mental health, classification.
Yeah.
And so
that's a good point.
So, like with the long-term, I would almost define it as a disability because it's something that is physiological. Even though
it manifests in the physical.
It manifests in a physiological way, even though it's mental, but
it's still like you can still feel it like physically because it's draining on you.
And it all comes down to like your serotonin levels, your dopamine levels, cortisol. Cortisol. Like it's very based off hormones.
Right.
So although it's mental, there's a very physiological aspect to it.
Yeah. I think more generally, so you bring in very interesting complexity, which also introduces a clinical vertical to it as well. But I think for me, generally, mental health is mental peace. So when you're able to just live in the present, and that's also very contextual, but being able to just observe the present and know what's around you and be able to give yourself to the present is having a good state of mental health.
Right.
You know, when you're constantly thinking about the past, you're in a different space, mental space. When you're constantly thinking about the future, you're also in a future state. You're overwhelmed, overstimulated, you're confused, you can be upset. But if you're in the present and you acknowledge what's around you and you appreciate what's around you, I think that at a basic form is having a good state of mind. And I think to me that is having a good mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah, The
Yeah.
Power of Now.
The Power of Now,
Yeah.
which is a really good book if you're looking into kind of some literature around this.
Yeah.
So do you consider yourself high functioning when you're struggling, or when you've found yourself in these environments of overstimulation? How do you kind of behave in that situation? Have you been aware now to understand how you are in those situations?
I don't think so. Personally,
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. I struggle with figuring out when I'm in a poor mental health state and when I'm in a good mental health state.
Yeah.
I try to figure out, what foods, what kind of sleep regimen, what things I need to do with my work schedule, what things I need to do to keep me in a good mental state. But it's still a work in progress. I still don't know what the triggers are. I know some. I know for me, I tend to be overloaded at work. So work stress, the burnout, I definitely feel a lot.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I struggle with is just my relationship with work. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to overcome some of that.
I'm on the same boat as you. I think the concept of awareness is something that's practiced, right? And so over time, when you're experiencing different environments and you're in that environment is when you actually become aware of what, and a lot of for me is also retrospective. So I may have done something in that time frame that I may have not liked, but I did it because that was my response. It was the way that I reacted to that environment. But in retrospect, I'll go back and be like, oh, wait, that I shouldn't have reacted this way.
Right.
And that is a moment of learning.
Right.
You mentioned something very interesting when we were kind of ideating on this topic, and it's actually bringing up some statistics. And it was the fact that, as men, they're less likely to actually ask for support, for treatment, for therapy, because of ego, because of whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, yeah, I think you guys just touched on a few points. Might be ego, might be stigma, shame, that feeling of being judged. Like everybody has that fear. So I think men are statistically less likely to seek that help and treatment as compared to women, and unfortunately, it manifests itself in kind of darker paths, and it's unfortunate. But I hope we can kind of get to a point now where men feel more comfortable seeking that kind of help and treatment. I think there's been some positive initiatives, but I don't think that it's as kind of talked about like men's mental health as much as it should be, in my opinion. But I know for me personally, like I'm kind of internalized a lot of things. Like I don't really like sharing or talking about things. In the past when people have said, oh, try therapy and stuff. Like for me, I've never been able to be someone who just kind of confides everything in a complete stranger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for me, it's always been like I need to have trust with somebody.
Yeah.
And there's only a specific number of people within my group that I'll maybe tell a few things to, and even then, like I still keep a lot of things to myself.
Right.
And I think a lot of people feel this way. But yeah.
Yeah.
Let's peel the onion on that. Like, where do you think this all stems from? Like historically, we hear stories of our parents immigrating to Canada. They grew up in a certain household that may have actually been with a lot of siblings.
Yeah.
So our grandparents, forget our discussion on mental health.
Right.
They probably don't even
Right.
know what that is at that point, or any form of health. Right.
Yeah.
Like, let's peel the onion there.
Yeah, I think it's generational as well, because our parents, they had their own set of issues, right, and their parents before them, right, and I know for my parents, my mom didn't really have great memories in her time in Africa.
Yeah.
My dad kind of left Pakistan early because they were struggling and to find work, so he went to London, England, and they've seen their own share of issues and whatnot, and what's happened around them in the world, and I think for them, they never really kind of talked about it. They never had that, opportunity to really talk about it because it wasn't a thing back then. So I think that's kind of now passed on to our
That's
generation
generational trauma.
where it's like, go to mosque, say a few words, put more thought into faith, and that's great and all, but I don't think that fully sometimes addresses the actual issues. I feel like you're addressing some of the symptoms, but not the causes. And I feel like with that generation, they've avoided the cause and they've kind of treated the symptoms.
It's avoidant behavior, absolutely. Also because you want to avoid it and not share it because you understand the domino effect that it could have
Right.
on everything that you may have built already. Like if
Yes,
it comes to question.
it's actually interesting that you mentioned that because every time I ask my mom, like, what about Africa you don't like? Or like, what about, some of these?
It's avoidant.
It's avoidant.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, oh, no, I don't have great memories. I don't have great memories. Like, what happened? Don't want to talk about it. Like, it's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like that.
It's hard to look within, and it's hard to look at your past, at your trauma.
Right.
It leaves you in a very vulnerable state.
Right.
And I think that's something that not a lot of people are okay or good at doing.
Right.
And so I think the blueprint for our parents and our grandparents and our ancestors was just avoid the conversation. That's how you deal with it.
Right.
But now we're learning in our generation that's not
The best way.
That's not the best way.
Right.
The best way is to look back, look at your trauma, address this trauma. Okay, what did you learn from your trauma? So
Yeah, and having that right environment and toolkit. I think the concept of a toolkit, a mental health toolkit, was something that was exposed to me when I fully devoted to this concept of therapy.
Right.
So I did therapy when I started my first job. It was just after university. And I was trying to balance between house, between work, between being the older child, and all these different things. And so I was like, my partner, Serena was like, you should consider being able to talk to someone and share your perspective of how you view of certain things and get an opinion back from a third party, because sometimes sharing all this with your partner can be a challenge,
Right.
because they also come with a certain bias. So sharing this with a third party might actually allow you to think of it in a different way,
True.
or present you with a toolkit that may be clinically validated for you to practice in order to overcome any of the things that you might be avoiding and so forth. I did that for about 6 months, 6 or 7 months. It helped. But what didn't help was the fact that even the therapist, she was a white female who couldn't relate to the cultural
The South Asian
ideas
experience, yeah.
of a South Asian person,
Right.
male,
That's a good point.
who just had finished 4th year of university, was first generation, was the oldest child. Like, there were so many different identities
Yeah.
that make me who I am. And so just talking to someone who is a Caucasian female who sees everything from a very clinical perspective, it was super tough.
Yeah.
And I'd say something, and then she would say something where I was like, that wouldn't work. Like, I remember this one thing. She was just like, "Have you sat down with your parents and just shared how much you're struggling?" I was like,
Have you been
"Why don't you come with me?
I'll do it together.
Wait, let's do it. Like, why don't you sit beside me, and then you'll see, and maybe you can write a clinical study based." Like, it just doesn't work. And so I think there's also underrepresentation. Like, we talk about youth in our generation having access to these types of things, but culture and identity are a huge piece of the pie. And so if we don't have people to confide in that are third party that don't understand the same experience, who do they really go to? Like, what tools are we really exposing them to? So that was something that was kind of personal to me, that I was like, therapy, maybe not. Maybe not.
Well, I think the good thing is like having different people and different perspectives on things. So having your non-South Asian therapist to approach it in a different light, and then you go to somebody else, maybe a friend, a family member who you can trust with a perspective that they actually know the dynamics of South Asian culture.
Yeah, and I guess that is where my parents say this all the time, but they say family is medicine. So, and I truly believe in that concept.
Me too.
Like, having a really strong support system around you is so important. And I think I'm lucky to have that with my friends and my family. Like, every time I've gone through a very significant life stage or a life moment, I've known that there's people behind me that I can just share this with, even though they might not have a comment or like a thought.
Yeah.
Just something I can verbalize and actually just put it into the space, and so they can share whatever they think about it afterwards. So I think family, the importance of family and having a support, safety, so what is this? Support safety net.
Yeah.
It is very important in that idea too.
Okay.
When we talk about manifestations of mental health, what are some things that you have seen? And I think we touched on it earlier, but maybe we can go a little deeper into it. What are your tells when your mental health is slipping? And how do you know? Are you working towards noticing them early now, based off of your experience, or how are you navigating that?
Yeah, I think the biggest tell for me is that my patience level goes down the drain completely. So even the smallest thing that my mom will say,
No.
it'll spark something, and I'll
Yeah.
just get frustrated.
Mhm.
I'll blow up,
Mhm.
and that I can tell is because of the burnout, the stress, whatever. It's not the comment itself. It's
Right.
just how I'm feeling internally. So my patience is definitely a sign that my mental health is not there. What about you?
For me, I think I retreat more. Like I kind of alienate myself from people. I kind of I mean I kind of to a certain degree kind of do that anyway. But I have like you know the people within my social circle that I keep close. But when I'm feeling my mental health slipping, even those people I kind of like will push away, and I'll become really like introverted, very introverted to the point where I don't really talk to anybody, and I don't want to talk to anybody until I'm ready to kind of talk. So I think for me, that's kind of one of those telltale signs that, yeah, something's off.
You know, first of all, kudos to you guys for actually being aware to know what are the things that actually that's a huge thing. Like, you know, to know how you manifest certain emotions and environments is a huge bonus on your own self, because then you can go into a future state and be like, all right, how do I avoid this? How do I not? Because I can relate with you in the sense that like I'll hear something that my parents say or my siblings will say that just doesn't sit with me, and I'll react just because it didn't sit with me. But there was obviously a way, or there was a backing to their what they shared, and so I didn't take the time to understand that. I just reacted. For me, it's similar to the saying where I'll just like stay quiet, like I'll just internalize and then overwhelm myself. Kind of talking about that. When we talk about it from a so that was we talked about it from an individual level. Let's go into the community space. So what are some ways you've seen our community glorify burnout or even suppress emotions?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with social media.
Yeah.
You know, I see so many influencers just say, wake up at 5 a.m., you know, get an early start to your day. You're already producing way more than the person that's starting at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
In the back of my head, I'm like, we all have 24 hours.
I know.
And sleep is more important than anything.
Yeah.
So why are we glorifying, you know, sleeping at, like, let's say midnight or 11 p.m., waking up at 4, you're sleeping for 5 hours, and we're glorifying that? That doesn't sound healthy.
Yeah.
So all these influencers on social media, I really don't jive with it. So that's something that I'm seeing, you know, the glorification of burnout.
Social media.
The social media is a big one. But I also think living in Toronto, I think my social circle also influences that as well. I'm seeing people really strive for whatever it is, good income, maximum gains. And so you're seeing your friends, you're seeing your circle get far ahead in life, and you're like, okay, and then comparison comes into effect. You're like, okay, why am I not at this person's level in income and whatever it is, and in job title? And you're starting to see that comparison manifest into, you know, okay, I should be doing this.
Let's I think it'd be worth kind of really digging deeper into every one of our kind of perspectives on this. I really want to kind of double click on your second one, which was even within the South Asian community, where we think that we should be supporting each other and being there for each other. Internally, there's this comparison idea of this person has a higher job, this person has a higher pay, this person goes to the gym all the time and health is so much more healthier than I am. It still is very present, and I almost feel like it's an invisible mental health struggle. Like no one's gonna actually talk about it.
Yeah.
But the people who are thinking about it, they're going through going through it a lot. So talk about that from a personal level a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, if we can take a look at us as human beings, we're social creatures. You know, like back in the tribal days, you know, we had to see what's around us to make sure that we're always sticking in that group. So comparison is natural. And I don't think comparison is a bad thing per se, but I think you need to have a healthy relationship with it.
Right.
And so personally, I'm still struggling with that myself. I see myself sometimes being like, oh, they're making twice as much much money as I am.
What am I lacking?
What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
But in reality, there's nothing wrong in making less. You know, everyone has different goals in life, right? Some people could be, their goal in life could be to contribute to a social cause. And if you're seeing life in that lens, making a certain amount of income doesn't matter. And so I'm trying to erase these expectations that society is putting on me and that I'm putting on myself.
Yeah.
That life needs to look a certain way.
Do you have any comments on that?
No, I think I agree, but I think there's also a familial, like a family element to it.
Yeah.
Because like, especially in the South Asian community, you know, parents talk with other parents, or they'll see other parents' kids and be like, you know, look at their kids, and they'll put that kind of pressure on their kids. And I think there's a lot of like parental pressure that comes on our generation as well, where they're kind of comparing you to other people's kids. So
and they mean well.
And they mean well, because they only do it for your best interest. But I don't think they fully realize that they're then putting like almost like a burden and a pressure, and they're increasing that pressure on you, where then you're also like adding to the state of comparison that you already naturally have.
Yeah, I agree. And I think just to bring back the example that I brought earlier, that generational shift of how work is done also has a huge impact. So in today's time, my parents still have a very hard time understanding the type of work that I do at home when I say work from home. Right. They think that because I'm not physically in office or physically doing work.
Right.
It's not that they think I'm doing less.
Right.
But they still don't understand or grasp the idea of what it is.
Sure.
Right. And so this shift between the blue collar and then the white collar and how that's manifesting, like I would like to argue that there is a lot more mental pressure when you're working to satisfy your employer's need from home on the computer than being in the office and being like attending that office space. Like,
the work-life balance is really tricky when you're working from home.
Yeah, and like I think we glorified it during COVID and these times where like everything shifted work from home and everyone's like, oh, this is amazing. I can like do my laundry and like answer a Teams call at the same time. But at the same, like, is that good?
Yeah.
Like is that focused time? Like, is that something that you're actually utilizing to be effective for you? Yes, you're getting a lot more things done. But how are you? Like, you know, like, are you overstimulated with the amount of noises and sounds and conversations and all that stuff is happening to you? I personally like this idea of isolating my time between what I do at work, coming home for work, and then focusing on home.
Right.
Like, I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
But there's some people who are just like sitting at home. I know, you know, the colleagues that I work with, you know, she has a child. You know, she's on the call with her child. The laundry's going on at the back. Like, you know, she's attending this Teams call. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you know, do you want to take some time and just like, you know, focus on the child and you know, it's so tough. Like, it's like, but people are managing it. I think that's when, if you need money, you need to do what you need to.
For sure. Yeah. So for the audience, like I'm a recruiter, and so I deal with a lot of people, and like the number one question is, you know, hybrid versus remote.
Yeah.
And I actually see a lot of people nowadays prefer going to the office.
Yeah.
And I think there's two different types of people. There are people that, you know, have a good setup at home, and might have a room where they can be isolated, but there are people that don't have access to that and they might prefer to have that. And I think for those who, you know, in their home, they might have different spaces. What I would recommend to our audience is to have different spaces for different things. So if you have, like, no matter how big your home is, dedicate a spot to work and then have that for work and then have a spot for personal time. So like, don't work on your couch. If you watch TV on your couch, don't work on your couch. You know,
That's true.
Because in your head, it's going to be hard to like divide up what's work and what's leisure.
Sure, yeah.
Or like if you like even your bedroom, have that separate. Like that should be like for resting and sleeping. So that's my suggestion to our audience, is really to have your home set up, in a way that you can thrive in whichever mode you're in.
Yeah.
There's another specific side to the South Asian mental health conversation that I wanted to kind of get your guys' opinion on, and it was being first generation versus being second generation. So what that means is our parents took the risk to leave the country that they grew up in order to start fresh in a new one. Some of us had parents that had siblings that were in other countries, and so the journey was easier. And then there were others that literally started from scratch in a new country. And as a child of parents who came into a country fresh, I think there's an invisible pressure that I feel sometimes, where it's my parents, gave up their leisure and gave up what they could have experienced growing up to come to a new country with this idea that our kids would have a better upbringing. But they would have access to healthcare, access to education, and access to other things, extracurriculars that can benefit their development. Now, I almost feel sometimes that pressure to fulfill the goals that they had, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what can I do throughout my growth where I can give back to them so they feel like whatever they gave to me, it meant something.
Yeah.
And I'm still having a hard time determining if this is a good thing or a bad thing, right? Like, because sometimes what happens is that let's take partner conversations, for example, right? Now you have a partner in your picture, right? And so you want to be able to give your maximum to them, but in the back of your head, you're like, I can't just leave my house and leave my parents and just walk away. Like, I want to be there for them because they brought me here and they gave me everything that I need in order to be quote unquote successful. Right? And so this is an internal battle. And I think what really helped me is being able to articulate and communicate this with my partner and having them understand the way that I think.
Yeah.
But there are certain scenarios and situations where that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah. So for me, I lived with my parents my whole life, and then I moved out with my wife, and I found that first year and a bit to be very challenging because it's like, obviously your parents are feeling some type of way because I've left, or you've left, and then
I love how we framed that. They're feeling some type of way. I don't know.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Your wife is excited because like now you can build a life.
It's a partnership,
So it's like, how do you devote your time into building, a future with your partner, but then you're also making sure that your parents are good and that you're giving enough time. And I think that's where I really struggled for a long time, trying to balance between responsibilities, work, my own personal leisure time with family, time with my partner. Like, it became a lot. So
for the sake of relatability, can you share some examples of some situations where that trouble actually manifested itself?
Like, for example, like one time my parents, now I have a schedule where I come over like a couple of times a week for dinner and stuff. But before we didn't have that schedule. And so me and my wife, we were trying to set up like we do like date nights and stuff. Right. And so I was going on all these like dates, but then my parents were calling me over for dinner. So it's like, how do you like, what do you do, right? So there are often times
you take your partner to the
so
free food.
And it's kind of like you want alone time with your partner, right? And but you also want to make sure that you're there with your family. So there was often times where I felt like I was being pulled in two different directions. And it increased a lot of stress on me, like mentally, because it's like,
and it's invisible stress.
It's invisible stress because it's like, how do I, make sure that both are happy, right? So I now, thank God, I've found like a schedule, and that would be like my advice is to plan out your week and devote time, because everybody like there's 24 hours a day, like 7 hours, 8 hours you're sleeping, but there's still a significant chunk of time where you can kind of devote time to things and to people. If you really want to, you can make time. And so that's how I was kind of thinking about it. And I'm like, you know what? No, this is just excuses. I can make the time to do things. So I kind of planned out my schedule properly. I got more organized with my time management. And I was like, okay, so on this day at this time, I'm gonna block it off. So I'm really big into Google Calendar now. So
You
I
are.
literally block off everything on my
Yeah.
week so that I can follow
Including
my
this podcast.
including so I can block off time and I can devote my time to people. So once I figured out that schedule and it became like a process, it actually helped me a lot.
Did you end up talking about the way that you felt during this time
No.
to anyone?
No.
So you just took it upon yourself. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, like I might have vented like a few times to my wife, like my frustrations or whatever. But again, like it's always been something where I've never been the type to really like
Be expressive.
I'm very introverted. I'm very,
I'll figure it out.
yeah, like I'll figure it out. I keep things internal. I don't really like talking about things. So I kind of just keep it to myself.
Yeah.
So that's how I've always been. My wife has tried to get me to open up a little bit more, but it's a slow process.
It is a slow process. I mean, that's the environment you grew up in. And
Yeah.
so I mean it's almost asking for you to completely change the way that you see the world and
Exactly.
see yourself. And it's possible, but it's a process. I don't.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples? Because your parents are here.
Mhm.
Your partner is
Yeah.
across the pond.
Yeah.
And you make that effort to do both. Like how does that manifest itself?
Yeah, it's easier for me because like when I'm here, the dedication is to my family. When I'm there, the dedication is to
That's
my
right.
partner. When I move, it'll be very difficult to balance the priorities of, my family needs and my partner needs. I still have to figure that out, and I'm still figuring it out right now, even in this temporary world. And something I wanted to kind of bring up with you guys as well is there's one thing I really, stress on is me time,
Mm.
partner time,
Mm.
family friend time, and then work time as well.
Right.
So those are like the four aspects really. And so the one thing I'm trying to figure out is me time. I'm very good at giving time to friends and
Yeah.
family. I'm very good at giving time to my partner, but the one thing I'm struggling to find is time for myself.
Yeah.
And so one question I have for you guys is, one, do you have do you have a good routine? Like do you think you spend enough time by yourself? And if not, why?
It's a good question. And
Mhm.
like just reflecting on it right now, I actually don't think like my me time is like traveling between work and home, right? Like when I'm just on the bus listening to music and just not focused on anything else. So there are small moments like that. Like so for example, in the evenings when I'll get ready to go to mosque and then go to mosque and then come home. Like those travel periods are me time. But I don't think I've actually set up like dedicated time slots in my calendar to be like, this is just for me. What am I gonna do? I think it just happens, and then I have to be like, all right, sick. So
Do you think you should prioritize it more, or do you think it's fine how it is?
I don't think it has bothered me, or like, I've always been someone who has been very happy being around people. Like I thoroughly enjoy giving my energy towards things and people. And the thing about me, and you mentioned this, like you mentioned you're an introvert, like how I see myself is an extroverted introvert. So what that means is I'm able to be out there and enjoy and give energy, but I don't expect the same from people to give back to me. Like the way that I recharge my battery is by being alone. So when I'm alone, my battery will be charged, but I'm an extrovert, meaning I can go out and then release that energy towards people and things and enjoy it that way. So I haven't actually thought about it, and I don't really think it's bothered me to this point.
Yeah, I think I get enough me time like at home because mine and my wife's schedules are very different sometimes. So I get enough time being alone, which I really do appreciate because I love being.
Correction, you're never alone. Simba's always behind you.
Simba's always there. Yeah,
always there.
that's true.
He has a little pet, man. He has a friend.
Yeah, Simba is my homie, so we do spend time together. He's the only one who's allowed to be there on my own time. But yeah, no, I do think like I get enough me time. So I think if I didn't have that, I'd get a lot more stressed and tense and frustrated because I thrive on just being alone and just doing my own thing. That's just who I've always been, and I do appreciate those moments that I can kind of have that for now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good question to ponder around. Like, just with an extension to that, have you been able to articulate, these different time priorities? Have you been able to articulate this to your family or your, like, just those who you surround yourself with and get a perspective?
I've had discussions with my partner about it,
Yeah.
and she agrees. Definitely, it's important to have time for yourself, time with partner, time with family.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I could have that same conversation with my family.
Yeah.
It would be a
Mm.
tougher discussion. When it comes to my family, they're like, "Why can't you spend all your time with us?"
Yeah.
It's like that's just not realistic. That's not even something I'd want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a healthy relationship is, one where I want to be there.
Yeah.
Like let me give you time where I'm dedicated and I want to be there. If I
Yeah.
feel obligated to show up in a certain way or in a certain amount of time, then you're gonna kind of feel friction, resentment.
Yeah.
So it's not even good quality time.
Yeah.
So you'd rather have the quality than the quantity. So in coming back to the discussion, I can with some people, but with family it's a bit tougher.
What's something that you feel like you could tell the older generation, to understand your experience? If you had the chance to just talk to your parents about one thing that's really been on your mind, what would that be?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Do you have something?
I could go first. I think this is a conversation that nowadays we have a lot more in my house, and it's understanding the differential of the way that work is being done and the type of pressures that exist on me versus relative to what was on them. So, for example, as millennials, we experienced 2008, we then experienced 2011, we then experienced 2020 COVID, 2019, 2020 COVID, and now we're experiencing another economy shift. In respect to that, that's economic uncertainty, and then the wars, the civil wars, the impact on the wars on geopolitical forces and how it had an impact on Canada, and the way that we're thinking about it being South Asians and some of our countries being, attacked on the other side of the world. So there's certain tensions that we don't talk about that exist that we have to overcome. And then the way that work is done today. So that digital versus, that exposure to AI, technology integrations. All of these things were also unique during that time, that the time that they grew up, but it's different.
Right.
And I'm still having a hard time articulating how to tell them that it's different because there is a knowledge gap. But that is something that I would want to talk to them about and tell them more. That the way that we do things now are actually require more mental effort than physical effort, right? And that type of pressure paired with finances, paired with partnership and relationships, paired with taking care of your parents and your siblings, paired with, am I going to have my own home? Paired with investments and future generational wealth.
Yeah.
All of these things are pressure.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to articulate that has been a challenge, but it's something that I want to continue talking about with my parents.
Yeah, I think, while you were talking, it made me think, like, I'm often having a discussion with my parents and I'm trying to get, my mom and my dad to see life in a certain way or try to do
through your perspective, maybe.
To my perspective, and also try to educate them on like how life is nowadays. I even try to teach them ChatGPT and stuff like that. It didn't go over well. They're like, no, I don't trust this ChatGPT. I don't know where my information's going. But the response I usually get is the mindset is different. The mentality is different. You think differently than we do. That's the response I get, and I can't argue with that. We do come from two different generations, and it's for them hard to erase 50, 60 years of living in a certain way. So I don't blame them for it being tough for them to change certain habits, certain mindsets. But it's often that friction that I'm getting in my household. What I'm trying to do is try to explain the difference between being selfish and selfless.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know about you guys, but my parents are very selfless. And that's
Yeah.
often glorified as it's a good thing. But I would kind of argue that it's not as good of a thing as one would think. Because when you're being selfless, you're not caring for yourself.
Right.
You're lacking the self-love. It takes self-love to be selfish.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to play a bit of a balance. You can't be too selfish. You can't be too selfless. So balance of the two. And I'm trying to explain that to my parents, my partner, even because I think I see that a lot, even with my friends as well. I see that a lot in the South Asian community that selflessness is glorified, and I'm trying to make a push that we should, sometimes look into our best interests and not into the best interest of anyone else.
I think when you show up 100%, things around you start to show up 100%.
Yeah.
But if you show up 25%, then you best believe that everything around you is going to be also 25%. And if you're happy with that, then sure. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you want to show up complete.
Yeah.
Now, there are so many different verticals that we can take for this specific episode. I want to end this specific episode on kind of what we're doing currently to take care of our mental health today. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, this is going to be a multi-series.
Yeah.
I think you cannot go over mental health in one episode. I think today what we tried to do is set up the scene of what it's like for us, how it manifests for us and our community. But I think we can go so many different tangents. And I think that's the goal. I think throughout the entire series, there's going to be more episodes. We might even bring on, I would actually, in a future episode, I'd like to bring on a psychotherapist or someone who from the South Asian community who can come in and talk about kind of how they navigate that as well. But to end this specific episode, what does taking care of your mental health really look like in your daily life today? What are some things that you're doing?
For me, it's just keeping my mind busy. I'm pretty active.
How are you doing that?
I'm pretty active in the gym with martial arts training. Sometimes it's kind of waned off because I've been busy with other things, but I'm trying to get back into that. But that's kind of been like the core where I've been putting my focus, as well as volunteerism. So that's been a huge part of my life for the past few years. Actually, I think volunteerism has really changed who I've become as a person, because it's giving to others, where I was too selfish before, and I didn't necessarily take care of my mental health in the healthiest way. I won't really go into details, but I have now, I think, shifted into trying to focus on more positive elements to kind of keep my mind busy and keep my mental health sharp. So I think those are some of the things that I've been focusing on.
What are some things that you're doing right now to take care of your mental health? How does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think for saying it's keeping busy, for me, it's that quiet time.
Interesting.
So for me, my most peaceful time are my walks. So it's so funny because I told you burnout, I'm trying to be as productive as possible. I actually used to go for walks and listen to podcasts or audiobooks. Even then, I go for an hour walk every evening. And even then, I'm trying to be as productive as possible. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like,
it's like built into your psyche now.
Yeah. It's like in Toronto, in this, living in the Western world.
High-paced environment.
Yeah, fast-paced, Even on my walks, I'm trying to get as many steps as possible. Like, what am I doing? No, but now I'm trying to change that to, okay, let's have a more peaceful walk. So now I take off the AirPods, and now I'm just trying to be at peace. And I'm truly calm at that
presence.
Yeah, and so from the 9 to 5, I built up all the stress, and then 5 o'clock, I go for my walk, and now I'm at peace.
Yeah.
That's when I distress and, put away all that stuff. So I think for me, it's more that peaceful time.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like to sit at home and just meditate and whatnot. To me, my meditative state is when I'm going for a walk, being in nature. So yeah, that's one thing I'm doing.
Just right now in present time, there are two things that I've been trying to do that have really helped me with my mental health. Number one is running. I love running. I don't know what it is. Just as soon as I plug in my AirPods, put on my running shoes, and I'm running, I'm not thinking about anything.
Yeah.
Like nothing. It's like I'm on a runner's high. Like I'm just running. Maybe running away from our problems.
I literally just thought that. I'm like, this guy's running away from his problems.
No, but I mean, I love running, and it puts me into the state where I'm not thinking about anything, and just overall a really good experience for me. And number two, what I've recently started, I think 2 weeks ago now, is actually learning how to play chess. I think,
Oh.
yeah, I just started, and if you are interested in learning chess, Duolingo now has an entire language
Wow.
module thing for chess. And
That's
so if you're
crazy.
someone who's interested in learning, I think there's a lot of mental resiliency that you can develop through playing chess, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of strategy. There's also gameplay stamina, like how you can think about being in the game, focused. So I've started learning that, and I think that whenever I'm playing or learning how to play chess, it's a good time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the me time.
That's awesome.
It's interesting because like for guys, like there's
Yeah.
this thing about being labeled as soft or sensitive. So
Yeah.
and I know growing up as teenagers that was probably a lot more prevalent
Yeah.
than in our adult years. So what would you guys tell your younger selves
Yeah.
about, like, looking back, if you were labeled as soft or sensitive or sharing emotion or sharing feelings?
Yeah.
What would what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think for me, it's that there's no shame in talking,
Yeah.
in opening up. I think actually the more evolved, the more cooler thing to do is being vulnerable. Like the cool thing back then was, oh, just suck it up, toughen up.
Yeah.
But I would actually say that's not the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wise. I think for me, if you are being told that you're too soft or sensitive, I would give that person a hug, because what they're doing is they're projecting their insecurities on you.
Mhm.
If you are feeling something, express it.
Yeah.
If you are thinking something,
Same.
confide in your close people, in the ones that you love. I think mental health is something that requires community. It requires love. It requires compassion. It requires a safety support system. And if you have one, use it. Like, go and get hugs. Like I hug the boys all the time, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think having someone who's close to you, who who's able to listen to you, is a big deal. And so if you're and I was checking some of the demographic side note. I was checking some of the demographics for this podcast, and up to episode 5, majority of our listeners are between 25 to 34. So it's basically our age range, and so they're able to resonate and relate to what we're saying. But there is, I want to say, 15 to 20% that are between 12 and 18. And so if you fall within that category, and if you're going through middle school, high school, university, and if you're going through conversations where or you have a lot of pressure on you, it is okay to feel that way, and it is okay to express it and share it. And I would encourage you to do that. And if someone comes to you, and if there's a bully in your life that is trying to be alpha mode and go full ego, just step away. There is no point of engaging in that type of conversation. They'd rather go and talk to a wall, because they're never going to listen to you. So, and maybe all they need is a hug. Like literally, that's
Probably.
that's
Probably.
literally what they need.
Probably.
So, it's totally okay to feel that way. That's what I would kind of tell them.
Yeah, I think for me it would be I would just tell my younger self to kind of step out of my comfort zone a little bit more instead of retreating to what I was normal. Even this, like, I'm like way out of my comfort zone. I do not like. You guys know I hate public speaking. I hate talking to people.
Which is also one of the reasons why we actually did this.
I absolutely just dread talking to people and doing all this. So this is, to me, already out of my comfort zone. But I would tell my younger self to do that earlier, because I think it's important to develop and to grow, and to learn as well. And so I think for me personally, when I kind of step out of my comfort zone, it's challenging my mind, and it's keeping my mind off other things, but it's keeping my mind occupied, and keeping my mind busy. So for me, that kind of has helped with my mental health, is keeping myself busy and keeping myself occupied and kind of challenging myself to develop and grow. And I think that's really helped me.
That's awesome. Let's end this episode with a rapid fire, like we classically do all the time. And so, first question: one thing that instantly calms you down.
Walks.
Movies.
Music. Journaling, or just trauma dumping in a group chat?
I'd like to trauma dump, but journaling is key.
Yeah.
Internalizing.
That's not even an option. What a guy.
I don't journal and I don't share stuff. So.
I would say trauma dumping in a group chat. I think we've done it, and especially Hussein only does it when it's geopolitical. If he has a thought of what's happening around the world, oh my god, you better expect like, five
it's like a
messages.
novel.
Yeah. What's your comfort food when you're stressed?
Cookies for me.
Cookies?
Yeah.
Come back to me on this one, actually.
There's no comeback. It's a rapid fire.
You go first and then rapid back.
I would say pasta. I really like enjoying pasta.
You know-
Whenever I'm stressed, that's my comfort food.
Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Yo,
Yeah.
Haagen-Dazs.
Wait, you eat that way too much. Does that mean you're stressed all the time? Yo, what a guy. He's signaling to us.
Yeah, we gotta take care of it.
Yo, give me a hug, boys.
One thing you're still unlearning about your mental health.
Whoa.
For me, it's how to address those reactions those states of reaction that I'm in. So if I hear something I don't like, I need to be okay to just step back and ask questions rather than react.
Yeah, for me, it's that, mental health looks different
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's just like there's no one way for mental health to look.
Yeah.
So kind of being open about it.
Be open about it.
I think it's the way I've dealt with it now. I've like dealt with it in toxic ways in the past, but now I'm kind of unlearning those ways and finding more positive ways to kind of deal with it.
Most ridiculous piece of desi mental health advice
God.
you've heard. I'll go first.
Go.
I'm stressed. My head hurts. My parents see me come out of my room. Are you feeling stressed? Yeah. Why don't you have a Tylenol and drink some water and take a nap? You'll be fine.
That's funny. For me, it's all in your head. Don't worry. Just it's all in your head.
Yeah, literally, it's mental. For me, it was actually start a family and everything will fix itself.
Oh, whoa. We leave on that note because then you come back for the next episode. In the next episode, we'll try to peel the onion on whatever he just said. It's huge. That's a wrap on this ride. Thanks for hopping off the rickshaw with us, where the conversations are just as chaotic and comforting as a family WhatsApp group chat at 2 a.m. If you laughed, felt seen, or just enjoyed the vibe, show us some love. Follow, share, drop a review, or send this to that one cousin who just needs to chill. Got a topic you want us to unpack, a hot take to share? Slide into our DMs or hit the link in the show notes. We're listening even if our parents aren't. Until next time, stay brown, stay loud, and stay a little unfiltered until episode 6. Take care.